The quantum engines of the Stalker hummed softly as Corax studied the derelict space station through his ship's viewport. The massive structure hung against the backdrop of a dying red giant, its skeletal framework barely visible in the crimson light. After 3 decades of hunting the galaxy's most dangerous criminals, Corax had developed an instinct for trouble, and this place reeked of it. His crystalline exoskeleton shifted colors, reflecting his unease as he guided his ship toward the station's main docking port. The contract had seemed simple enough: investigate an energy signature matching pre-extinction human technology. The payment was excessive for such a straightforward task, which should have been his first warning. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic groan that echoed through his ship's hull. Corax activated his combat suit, the nanofibers wrapping around his crystalline form like liquid metal. His species, the Varkari, had been instrumental in humanity's downfall during the Great Purge 2 centuries ago. Now, their superior technology made them the galaxy's premier bounty hunters. The station's artificial gravity stuttered as Corax stepped through the airlock. His sensors indicated breathable atmosphere, unusual for a station this old. The metal walls were scarred with plasma burns and impact craters, telling stories of ancient battles. His boots left prints in the thick dust as he moved deeper into the station, following the energy signature. Curious, he muttered, his translator converting his crystalline resonances into standard galactic speech. The energy readings were erratic, pulsing like a heartbeat. Human technology had always been crude but effective. This was different, almost organic in its patterns. The corridor opened into what had once been a research laboratory. Broken stasis pods lined the walls, their contents long since gone. Holographic displays flickered weakly, casting dancing shadows across the room. Corax approached a central console, its surface covered in frost despite the room's ambient temperature. A movement caught his attention, subtle, but unmistakable. His combat reflexes took over, plasma cannon deploying from his forearm as he spun around. "Show yourself," he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, a figure stepped out from behind a damaged stasis pod. Corax's sensor suite went haywire, trying to process what he was seeing. Standing before him was impossible: a human female, young by their standards, with dark hair and eyes that reflected the red light from outside. "Impossible," he whispered, his weapon remaining trained on the figure. Humans were extinct, eliminated during the Great Purge. Their destruction had been absolute, or so every historical record claimed. "Are you going to shoot me?" the human asked, her voice steady despite her obvious fear. She wore what appeared to be modified station maintenance gear, adapted to fit her frame. Corax's mind raced through possibilities. A clone? An advanced artificial construct? But his scanners confirmed what his eyes refused to believe: she was genuine, living human tissue. "What are you called?" he demanded. "Nira," she replied, her hands raised slightly. "And I know what you are, Varkari. Come to finish what your people started?" The bitterness in her voice struck something in Corax, an emotion he hadn't felt in years: shame. The Great Purge had been before his time, but every Varkari carried its legacy. "I'm here to investigate an energy signature," he said, lowering his weapon slightly. "Explain your presence." Nira's eyes darted to the frost-covered console behind him. "That's complicated. I woke up here 6 months ago. This station, it's more than it seems. There are things hidden here, things your people missed during the Purge." A distant explosion rocked the station, causing both of them to stumble. Corax's tactical display lit up with multiple incoming signatures. "We have company," he growled, his combat protocols activating automatically. "Scavengers, drawn by the same energy signature I was tracking." Nira's expression hardened. "They can't find what's here. It's too important." She moved toward the console, her fingers flying across its surface. The frost began to recede, revealing complex patterns etched into the metal. Corax's bounty hunter instincts screamed at him to stun the human and collect what would be the greatest prize in the galaxy. Instead, he found himself moving to defend the laboratory's entrance. "Whatever's here," he said, his weapon charging, "it better be worth the trouble it's about to cause." The console hummed to life, bathing the room in a pale blue light. Neera's voice was quiet but determined as she worked. "It's worth everything. What's hidden here could change the galaxy, or destroy what's left of it." Multiple footsteps echoed through the corridors, growing closer. Corax's tactical display identified at least 12 heavily armed figures approaching. As he prepared for battle, he realized that his simple investigation had become something far more complex. The last human in the galaxy stood behind him, working to unlock secrets that had supposedly died with her species, while the station's ancient corridors filled with threats. The galaxy's greatest bounty hunter was about to become either its greatest traitor or its greatest savior. As plasma fire began to light up the corridor, Corax made his choice. The hunt had just begun, but its nature had fundamentally changed. Now, he wasn't hunting the human, he was protecting her, and whatever universe-shifting secrets she guarded. The first plasma bolt sizzled past Corax's head, leaving a glowing scar on the laboratory wall. His crystalline structure refracted the weapon's light, casting prismatic patterns across the room as he returned fire. Behind him, Neera worked frantically at the console, her fingers dancing across its surface with practiced precision. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster," Corax growled, his shoulder-mounted defense turret deploying automatically. The scavengers were smart, using the station's architecture for cover as they advanced. He recognized their tactics: Centaurian mercenaries, notorious for their ruthlessness and advanced weaponry. "Almost there," Neera muttered, her voice tense with concentration. The console's blue glow intensified, spreading through previously hidden conduits in the station's walls. "They're not just here for salvage, are they?" Corax's tactical display highlighted movement patterns that confirmed his suspicions. "No. This is a coordinated strike team. Someone knew what was here and sent them to collect." He launched a spread of microdrones, their tiny forms zipping down the corridor to harass the attackers. The console suddenly pulsed with brilliant light, and Neera stepped back. "Got it. Corax, we need to move. Now." The urgency in her voice made him turn, just in time to see a section of the laboratory floor sliding away, revealing a hidden passage. "Of course there's a secret tunnel," he muttered, backing toward it while maintaining suppressive fire. "After you." Neera didn't hesitate, dropping into the opening with practiced ease. Corax followed, his combat suit's enhanced strength cushioning their landing in a lower corridor. The passage sealed above them just as the mercenaries breached the lab. This level of the station was different. While the upper levels showed signs of battle damage and age, these corridors were pristine, as if they'd been sealed away from time itself. Soft blue lighting pulsed along the walls, responding to their presence. "What is this place?" Corax asked, his sensors struggling to analyze the unusual technology surrounding them. Neera walked with purpose, clearly familiar with the layout. "A contingency plan. When your people launched the purge, humanity knew we couldn't win through conventional means. So we prepared something else: insurance." "Insurance?" Corax's crystalline form shifted colors, expressing his unease. "The historical records say your species fought to the last, that we hunted down every colony, every outpost." "History is written by the victors," Neera replied, her tone bitter. "But sometimes, the losers leave behind surprises." She stopped at an intersection, placing her hand on a seemingly blank wall. Lines of light spread from her touch, forming complex patterns. "Your genetic signature," Corax realized. "The station recognizes you." More than that. A doorway materialized, opening into a vast chamber that took even Corax's breath away. The room was filled with rows of suspended animation pods, each containing what appeared to be a sleeping human. It protected us. Corax's combat suit registered hundreds of life signs, all in perfect stasis. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected. Not through these walls, Nira interrupted. This section of the station exists partially out of phase with normal spacetime. It's how we stayed hidden for so long. She moved to a central control platform. But now we have a bigger problem. The stasis field is failing. That's what drew your attention, and theirs. Above them, the sound of explosions echoed through the station's superstructure. The mercenaries were trying to blast their way down. Corax's tactical display showed multiple breach attempts in progress. "Why show me this?" he asked, his weapon still ready but no longer aimed at Nira. "I'm Varkari. My people did this to yours." Nira turned to face him, her expression a mix of desperation and determination. "Because I don't have a choice. The stasis pods are failing faster than I can stabilize them. Without help, everyone here will die, again. And because despite what you are, you chose to help me up there." The chamber's lights flickered as another explosion rocked the station. Corax moved to the control platform, studying the complex systems. His people's technology had always been more advanced, but this was something else entirely. "The mercenaries have quantum charges," he said, checking his tactical feed. "They'll break through eventually. Even a time-shifted space can't hold forever." "Then help me save them," Nira pleaded. "These aren't soldiers or warriors. They're scientists, artists, children, everything we wanted to preserve of our civilization. Help me, and I'll show you why humanity really disappeared. The truth that your people never knew." Corax's crystalline form shifted through patterns of deep thought. Everything he'd been taught about the Great Purge, about humanity's extinction, was unraveling before him. The greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy was about to become part of something far larger than a simple hunt. "What do you need?" he asked finally. Nira's relief was palpable. She turned to the controls, bringing up complex diagrams. "First, we need to stabilize the main stasis grid. Then we need to move these people before the mercenaries break through. But most importantly..." She hesitated, looking up at the towering crystalline figure beside her. "We need to wake them up. All of them. Because what's coming is worse than your people ever were, and we're going to need every survivor to face it." The chamber hummed with potential energy as ancient systems began to power up. Above them, the mercenaries continued their assault on the hidden sanctuary. And in the midst of it all, a Varkari bounty hunter and possibly the last free human in the galaxy began working to resurrect a civilization that was never truly dead. The hunt had become a rescue mission, but Corax's instincts told him this was just the beginning. Whatever truth Nira promised about humanity's disappearance, he suspected it would reshape everything he thought he knew about the galaxy, and his own people's role in its darkest chapter. The awakening process was unlike anything Corax had ever witnessed. One by one, stasis pods hummed to life, their occupants emerging from centuries of suspended animation. The chamber filled with the sounds of gasping breaths and confused voices as humanity began to stir. "The neural interface is working," Nira announced from the control platform, her fingers flying across holographic displays. "Their minds are adapting to the time shift. No signs of cognitive degradation." Corax's tactical systems monitored the mercenaries' progress above while he helped stabilize the awakening humans. His crystalline form drew startled looks and fearful whispers, but he ignored them. "They're through the third barrier," he reported. "Maybe 20 minutes before they breach this level." A tall man with graying hair approached, moving with the careful steps of someone still adjusting to gravity. "Nira," he called out, his voice hoarse from centuries of disuse. "Status report." "Professor Rylan," Nira acknowledged. "The emergency protocols worked exactly as designed. But we have hostiles incoming and the station's structural integrity is compromised." Ryland studied Corax with keen eyes that belied his apparent age. And our Varkari friend? He's with us, Nira said firmly. We don't have time for prejudice, Professor. The Nexus protocol is active. The professor's face paled. Already? We're not ready. The simulations indicated we'd have more time. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Corax's tactical display flashed warnings. Whatever your plan is, it needs to happen now. They've adapted their quantum charges to the phase variance. This space won't stay hidden much longer. Rylan nodded sharply and turned to address the growing crowd of awakened humans. Listen carefully. This is not a drill. Protocol 7 is in effect. Everyone to your designated evacuation points. Bring only what you can carry. Move. The chamber erupted into organized chaos as hundreds of people began moving with practiced precision toward previously hidden exits. Corax watched in amazement as sections of wall dissolved, revealing passages and chambers that his sensors hadn't detected. You've had this planned for centuries, he realized. The stasis pods failing, it wasn't an accident, was it? Nira shook her head, still working at the controls. The energy signature that drew you here was a beacon. We needed someone like you, someone who could see past their prejudices when the moment came. The mercenaries? An unexpected complication, Rylan interjected. Though perhaps not entirely surprising. The Nexus Protocol's activation would have drawn attention from multiple sectors. Another explosion, much closer. Debris rained from the ceiling as the chamber's structural integrity began to fail. Corax's combat suit automatically deployed its shield, protecting the nearest group of evacuating humans. Nira, Rylan called out urgently. The core? Transferring now, she replied. Her hands pressed against the control platform, and suddenly the blue light that had filled the chamber began to flow into her body. Her eyes glowed with the same ethereal energy. Corax's sensors went wild, registering power readings that shouldn't have been possible. What are you? The key, she gasped, her voice overlaid with harmonics that made his crystalline form resonate. And the lock. And the door. The energy flow ceased, leaving her swaying but upright. We need to go. Now. The chamber's ceiling cracked, chunks of metal and composite materials crashing down. Corax's tactical display showed the mercenaries had breached the outer shell of their hidden space. This way. Rylan led them toward a passage that seemed to bend reality around its edges. The quantum arc is waiting. We've only got one chance at this. As they ran, Corax's mind raced through the implications of what he was witnessing. The humans hadn't just hidden, they'd spent centuries preparing for something. Something big enough to warrant preserving their entire civilization in secret. The passage opened into a colossal hangar bay that, by all rights, shouldn't have fit within the station's dimensions. Suspended in its center was a ship unlike anything Corax had ever seen. It wasn't built, it looked grown, its organic curves reminiscent of the technology he'd seen in the stasis chamber. The quantum arc, Nira breathed, her eyes still glowing faintly. Humanity's greatest achievement. And our last hope. The evacuated humans were boarding the vessel through multiple access points, moving with the efficiency of a well-rehearsed plan. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew closer as the mercenaries fought their way through the station's final defenses. Corax, Nira turned to him, her expression intense. This is your last chance to walk away. Once you step onto that ship, everything changes. The galaxy as you know it, your people's entire understanding of history, none of it will ever be the same. The bounty hunter looked at the impossible ship, at the hundreds of humans emerging from centuries of hiding, at the glowing figure before him who seemed to bridge the gap between technology and biology. His crystalline form shifted through patterns of decision. I stopped walking away the moment I lowered my weapon in that laboratory, he said. Whatever truth you're carrying, whatever's coming that scared humanity into hiding instead of fighting, I need to know. A massive explosion rocked the hangar. Through the breach stepped heavily armed figures, their weapons charged. The mercenaries had arrived. Then run. Nira grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the Ark as plasma fire filled the air. Behind them, Professor Rylan was already activating defense systems that emerged from the hangar walls. As they raced toward the ship, Corax realized that the real hunt was only beginning. The question was, who was truly the hunter, and who was the prey? Legacy of the Stars. The quantum ark's interior defied conventional physics. As Corax and Nira raced through its biomechanical corridors, the vessel seemed to respond to their presence, pathways forming and sealing behind them. The sounds of battle echoed from the hangar as Professor Rylan coordinated the last of the evacuation. "The bridge is this way," Nira called out, her body still glowing with absorbed energy. The ship's walls pulsed in sync with her movements, creating an ethereal light show that made Corax's crystalline form resonate in response. They emerged into a vast circular chamber that served as the Ark's command center. Unlike traditional starship bridges, this one was almost entirely organic in appearance, with control interfaces that grew from the floor like crystalline flowers. The ship, Corax observed, his tactical systems trying to make sense of the technology surrounding them. "It's alive." "More than alive," Nira replied, stepping into a central platform that embraced her like a blooming flower. "It's evolved. We didn't just hide during the centuries of stasis, we dreamed. And while we dreamed, our technology dreamed with us." The chamber filled with other survivors as Professor Rylan arrived, sealing the bridge entrance behind him. "The mercenaries are contained, but they've called for reinforcements. We need to initiate the jump sequence now." Nira nodded, closing her eyes as she merged with the ship's systems. The energy she had absorbed from the station began to flow through the Ark structure, causing the entire vessel to hum with power. "Wait," Corax stepped forward. "Before we go anywhere, I need to know the truth. What are we running from? What could be worse than the Great Purge?" The chamber fell silent as Rylan and Nira exchanged glances. Finally, Nira opened her glowing eyes and waved her hand, creating a holographic display that filled the bridge. "We call them the Void Heralds," she explained. "They're the reason we let your people believe they had won the war. The reason we went into hiding." The hologram showed massive entities that seemed to bend reality around them, their forms barely comprehensible to Corax's enhanced vision. "They've been sleeping in the space between galaxies," Rylan continued. "The war with the Varkari was just background noise compared to what we discovered. They feed on civilizations, not just their resources or their people, but their very essence. Their potential. And they're waking up," Nira added softly. "That's what the Nexus Protocol detected. That's why we had to emerge now. Dawn of tomorrow." The quantum arc shuddered as the first wave of reinforcements arrived in the system. Capital ships of various species, all drawn by the station's energy signature, began taking up attack positions. "They don't understand what they're dealing with," Rylan muttered, monitoring the tactical displays. "They think this is about salvage, about technology they can steal." Corax watched as more ships arrived, including several bearing Varkari markings. His own people, coming to investigate the impossible reappearance of humanity. Everything he had believed about his species' supremacy, about the righteousness of the Great Purge, seemed hollow now. "We need their help," he realized. "All of them. If these Void Heralds are as dangerous as you say, no single species can face them alone." Nira nodded, her connection to the Ark growing stronger. "That's why we chose to reveal ourselves now. Why we needed someone like you, Corax. A bridge between the old enemies." The ship's defensive systems activated as the first warning shots were fired from the assembled fleet. Energy shields unlike anything Corax had ever seen absorbed the attacks, transforming the hostile fire into additional power for the Ark systems. We can show them, Nira said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the ship. Show them what's coming. Make them understand. She raised her hands, and suddenly every ship in the system was connected through a quantum field generated by the arc. In an instant, the truth that humanity had hidden with for centuries was shared across the assembled fleet, the visions of the Void Heralds, the devastating future they represented, and humanity's centuries-long preparation for this moment. The attacks ceased as the various species processed what they had seen. Corax felt the change ripple through the quantum field: fear, understanding, and finally, determination. "We have a chance," Rylan announced, reading the incoming communications. "But only if we work together. Humanity's resurrection isn't an act of revenge, it's a call to arms." Nira turned to Corax, her glow beginning to fade as the arc stabilized. "The greatest hunt in history is about to begin," she said. "Not for bounty or glory, but for survival itself. Will you help us lead it?" Corax's crystalline form shifted through patterns of absolute certainty. "The hunter has become the guardian," he replied. "And perhaps that's what I was always meant to be." The quantum arc's engines powered up, its organic structure humming with possibilities. As the assembled fleet began organizing around them, Corax realized that the story of humanity's extinction had been just the prologue. The true tale, one of resurrection, redemption, and unity in the face of cosmic horror, was just beginning. Above them, the dying red giant cast its light across the gathered ships of former enemies, now united against a threat greater than their past conflicts. The hunt for humanity's last survivor had become a crusade to save all civilizations, and in the quantum-enhanced corridors of the Ark, a new dawn was breaking for the galaxy. The end.